Every terrarium you have ever seen, including the one sitting right here, exists because of a moth. Not a fern, not a moss, not a genius plan. A moth cocoon, a sealed jar, and one very frustrated London doctor who couldn't keep a fern alive to save his life. Relatable. You might have seen my short about the invention of the terrarium, but there's a lot more to the story. So, grab your favorite beverage and settle in. This one's a ride. Smuggled tea, stolen rubber trees, and a guy who never made a dime off the invention that built an empire. This is the story of the Wardian case. Let's set the scene. London, 1820s. The Industrial Revolution is in full swing, which means the air is essentially pollution soup. Coal smoke, soot, sulfur, the works. Status quo for factories, catastrophic for ferns. And this is Nathaniel Bagshaw Ward. He was a medical doctor by trade, but botany was his obsession, specifically ferns. He kept trying to grow them in his garden in East London, and they just died every time. The air was too filthy, too full of gunk. Classic why do my plants keep dying scenario, except in his case, it's not overwatering, it's the Industrial Revolution. Here's where it gets good, because Dr. Ward wasn't even trying to solve his fern problem when he solved his fern problem. Around 1829, he'd been doing completely unrelated bug stuff. He was an amateur naturalist, and he had a sphinx moth pupa that he wanted to see emerge. So he sealed it up in a glass jar with some damp soil and leaf litter to keep the humidity right for the moth. And then he just forgot about it, set it near a window, and went about his life. Weeks later, he looked over and there was a fern sprout growing inside the bottle, thriving, in the middle of sooty London, in a sealed jar he wasn't even paying attention to. He'd basically built a terrarium by accident while babysitting a moth. What he was seeing was the water cycle in miniature. Moisture evaporates during the day, hits the glass, condenses, drips back down, waters the plant again. A tiny self-contained weather system that doesn't care what's happening outside the glass. Which, if you've built a closed terrarium, is exactly the thing you're trying to engineer on purpose. Dr. Ward just sort of fell into it. He didn't just shrug and move on. He got obsessed, ran more experiments, and started building proper sealed glass cases. Wood frame, glass panes, basically a mini portable greenhouse with handles. He worked with a well-known nursery in London to refine the design. But the real test came in 1833. Dr. Ward decided to see if this thing could survive an actual sea voyage, the thing that had been killing plant shipments for decades. Salt spray, temperature swings, weeks with no fresh water, sailors who couldn't be bothered to care for cargo that wasn't paying them. Nurseries were used to losing most of the live plants they tried to import. So he loaded 2 of his cases with ferns, mosses, and grasses and sent them on a ship bound for Sydney, Australia. Watered once, a light sprinkle near the equator, and otherwise sealed and left alone for months. They arrived in Sydney with the plants not just alive, but thriving so hard they were reportedly pushing against the lid. That's the moment the Wardian case stopped being a curiosity and became a piece of infrastructure. Okay, here's where this stops being a cute plant story and turns into, honestly, a story about empire, because that's what actually happened. Once people realized you could move living plants across oceans reliably, botanists and colonial governments realized you could also move cash crops and take them from the places where they'd always grown to wherever you wanted to grow them. Here are just a few examples. In the 1840s, a plant hunter named Robert Fortune used Wardian cases to smuggle around 20,000 tea plants out of Shanghai into British India. Disguised, sneaking through restricted areas, the whole spy movie routine. That shipment helped Britain break China's centuries-long monopoly on tea and start up the tea industry in Assam and the Himalayas. Around 1860, cinchona trees, the source of quinine, the main malaria treatment at the time, were moved out of South America in Wardian cases to be grown in British and Dutch colonies in Asia. In the 1870s, rubber tree seedlings from Brazil were shipped in Wardian cases to Kew Gardens, and then on to Ceylon and Malaysia, kicking off rubber plantations that eventually undercut Brazil's own rubber economy. So the same little glass box that let a hobbyist grow ferns in smoggy London also became one of the tools that let colonial powers relocate entire agricultural economies, often through outright theft of plants from the places they belonged to. And you thought the British Museum was bad. It's a genuinely wild double life for one wooden and glass box. Charming Victorian houseplant fad on one hand, tool of imperial resource extraction on the other. But both of these things are true. Meanwhile, back in regular people's living rooms, the Wardian case became trendy. Once Victorians saw that you could keep delicate ferns alive indoors despite grim city air, fern fever took off like crazy. Wardian cases became a genuine home decor status symbol. Ornate glass and wood furniture pieces sitting in parlors across Britain, packed with ferns and mosses. Essentially, the terrarium was a Pinterest home trend before Pinterest, before electricity, before cottagecore was even a word. And here's the gut punch ending. Dr. Ward never patented the case, never made real money off it despite it reshaping global trade for the next century. Later in life, he actually wrote a letter complaining that decades after his invention circled the globe, he'd never gotten so much as a thank you from any official body. Just an endless stream of curious strangers showing up at his door wanting to see the famous jar guy's miniature greenhouse. Hey, at least they named it after him. Meanwhile, Kew Gardens kept using his cases to ship plants internationally all the way up until 1962. Over a century after that first accidental fern in a jar. So, next time you seal up a terrarium, water it once and don't touch it for a month, you're not just doing a low-maintenance hobby. You're running the exact same experiment that a Victorian doctor accidentally started while trying to see a moth emerge from its cocoon. It just also happened to reroute the global economy on its way to your windowsill. And that's the Wardian case. Accidental invention, Victorian house trend, and quietly one of the most consequential little boxes in botanical history. If you want the Just the Fun Facts, No Imperialism homework version, I'll link the short in the credits. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.
If your plants look sad and you lost all hope, tried everything, you're at the end of your rope. Should you throw them out into the street? Nope, just ask Planty Jen. If you wanna be a Planty acolyte, learn the tips and tricks to keep them growing right. Water, fertilizer, and the right amount of light, just ask Planty Jen.